Hi everyone, and welcome to blog 9 of the Tackle the Feelings Before the Behaviour parenting approach. And today I'm going to be tackling the emotion of shame. And I'm going to entitle this blog, How Shame is Different to Guilt. Because I think these are two emotions that get really confused. And guilt is almost like a break-off of shame, because shame is the core emotion. So I'm going to include an example, but I want you to bear in mind that this example is not the only example of shame, and I'm going to try and give you as much as possible to help you get a bit of an understanding and get the cogs turning on this complex emotion, because it has roots to self-esteem issues and pretty much most mental illnesses, substance abuse, relationship issues, most problems in life actually have a shame foundation or an element of shame in them. And it's the most least understood emotion, and it's one of those things that parents have absolutely no clue about, and it's generationally gets passed down, and the cycles just keep continuing. And I really want to nut this one out. I want people to be aware of it for themselves as adults, but as parents, and to start doing some prevention work so this doesn't keep happening. So shame is different to guilt. When you feel guilty because you've done something wrong. You feel like you've done something wrong, done being the main word. When you feel shame, you feel like fundamentally who you are and the situation that you are something wrong. Not that you've done something wrong, but that you actually are wrong. That in some way, the person that you are is lacking. And this is a very, very difficult thing. And often we don't understand it's even happening. It's all on an unconscious level. But our shame gets triggered when we feel threatened or when we feel like we're going to be exposed. That shame or that lacking that we feel that we have is going to be exposed. So people react in different ways. Some people get really angry and lash out when they've been shamed. Other people withdraw and isolate themselves. But whatever it is, you put in strategies and coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms in place in order to stop people seeing who you really are, because fundamentally you believe that if they saw who you really were, they wouldn't like you, you wouldn't belong, you wouldn't fit in, you would be found out. So even at this point, this might ring home to a few people, or you might see someone in your life. I just want you to bear in mind that when you're tackling shame, to go very gently. It's when you're working with shame, the level, as a counselor, you treat it like trauma. It's a very, very tricky emotion. And so when exploring it, I urge you to be kind to yourselves and meet it with curiosity. Don't beat yourself up about anything. So shame will stem from childhood. And many, many things can bring on shame, but the main thing is actually emotional neglect. So, and I'm not talking about neglect in terms of not getting fed enough, not getting enough clothes to wear, a roof over your head, maybe being played with, all that type of thing. It's about needs, your fundamental needs. And that's why babies can get shamed, because if the parent isn't identifying the needs and helping to meet that child's needs, the message that translates to the child is they're not worthy, that they're lacking, that something's wrong with them. They don't see anything as being, mum's busy or she's got a headache or X, Y, and Z. It all comes down to a really fundamental instinctual drive thing that actually has a lot to do with survival. So in my case, my shame stems from when I was a baby for various reasons. So this is something I was not aware of, absolutely not aware of. Even learning about it, I was absolutely clueless. It's something you hide so intricately, even from yourself. But you wear the consequences, you wear the low self-esteem, you wear the temper, you wear the lashing out, you wear the feeling like you never quite fit in and never quite belong. And that's one of the most difficult things, and that leads to things like lots of people know that I suffer from anxiety. That anxiety comes from as a baby when my needs weren't met. And one example I'll give you is that old, tired belief that letting your child cry it out is the way to go. Don't spoil them with too much, otherwise they'll expect you to keep coming. Dispel that. Your children need touch. They need to be attended to. They are completely and utterly dependent on you. So, as my mum thought she was doing the right thing by me, in fact, I was not getting my needs met when I was crying for attention. Something was preventing her from coming to meet my needs. Another example I can give you, and this is not my own example, I found this in an emotion focused book, is that, for instance, Dad's working a lot. Okay, he's going out and he's working again this weekend. And little boy, let's say he's 3 years old, comes and he's really upset with Dad because he's not going to be there this weekend. He really wanted to spend time with Dad, and he confronts Dad with that. Dad, already feeling pressured, already feeling like, I've got to bring money in, this is ridiculous, lashes out at the child slightly and says, don't be ridiculous. I spend much more time with you than other fathers I know. I've got to work. Don't get angry. This is something I've got to do. And that shames the child because they felt angry. They felt upset that Dad's leaving. But Dad's saying that's ridiculous to feel that way. Other children don't get it as good as you. So the messages that get sent is that was wrong. It was wrong to feel angry with Dad. In fact, that was naughty to feel angry with Dad for that. So you're blaming the child for how they feel. This can have long-term effects because then the child starts to think anger's the problem. So every time they feel angry, they don't want to express it. And you can see there are a lot of people in this world who don't like to express anger. They don't get angry. That say thank you or I'm sorry over and over again. And we don't know why people have problems with anger. There it is, because they were shamed for feeling anger. And this creates a lot of problems because anger is a very powerful emotion. And anger teaches us our own personal boundaries. So as you can see, by shaming a child for what they feel in the beginning, you are giving them an unhealthy relationship with anger or the emotion that they've been shamed for. They can't feel this emotion, so they deny aspects of themselves. And that's why the feelings associated with shame are often emptiness, lack of belonging, feeling like there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Because you can't be true to yourself. You can't be true to your feelings. Your feelings become your enemies. And most of you will have a bad relationship with one emotion or the other. How many of you love crying? How many of you love feeling angry? How many of you love feeling frustrated? Not many, myself included. And we feel like if we get anxious or we get stressed, that's a really bad thing. And we start negatively talking to ourselves that we shouldn't be feeling this way. Why can't we just be like everybody else? We make comparisons. We end up feeling empty, this empty hole inside ourselves that we just can't seem to fill. And we don't even know why we feel empty. We see we've got friends, we've got a roof over our head, a job, this, that, the next thing, but still we feel lacking. And that is shame. And so to wrap all of this up, and I know that this is a difficult thing to think about, and it's especially difficult to think that it came from childhood and that your parents might have had a role of this, or most likely did have a role in this. When you've been shamed and you don't understand that, you just do what your parents did, what your parents did, what your parents did. It's this lack of understanding. So my urge for you all today is start to think about it. Start to look at yourselves a little bit. And start to look at those negative emotions as things that are important. What emotions are you unable to express? And it's good when teaching your children to be able to express and appreciate the whole range, to be able to feel anger, but you teach them appropriate ways. So in that situation with that little boy being upset with Dad, in the tackle the feelings approach, and to regulate that emotion, Dad would get down to the child's level, connect with the child, make eye contact, give that child a bit of their time, their presence, because it's about presence. It's about whether you're there, whether you're attending, making that child feel important and valued, and say, I know you feel angry with Dad. I know it's really hard, and I wish I could stay with you too, but I've got to work, and it's not because of you, and it's not because I don't want to spend time with you, and it's a really horrible situation, but how about this? Next time we're free, we can go out for XYZ, or maybe we can make a time, and really soothe that child and understand the anger. Don't put the child down for feeling angry. As a baby, the child can't talk to you, the child can't say they're upset, but you can pick that up. You can pick that up in their crying, in their screaming, in their distress, in their inability to sleep, in their refusal to eat. All those things are showing you that there's something wrong, and you need to attend to it, that you need to soothe that child. You've got to comfort that child. So when the child is crying, you've got to use your touch, your loving touch. If the child's hungry, you've got to feed the child. Those are the things. So you're attending to those emotional needs by attending to those physical needs as a baby. Tuning in, is the child too hot, too cold? And this goes right through. And so when your child comes to you with a problem or a bad dream or something, the number one rule is not to dismiss that, not to ever correct your child's emotions. Never correct your child's emotions. Talk about it, name it, identify it, sit with it, teach them how to manage it, teach them what to do with their anger, teach them what to do with their frustration. And that's what we'll nut out a bit more in other blogs. I'll leave it there today. I won't give too many strategies. But one thing I do want to say for those of you who might be a bit triggered by shame or realizing that they might have shame themselves, the number one thing is to meet your own needs. Soothe yourselves. Be mindful about, are you hot? Get yourself cool. Are you cold? Put a jersey on. Are you anxious? Do you need a hug? Do you need to hold a pillow? Are you angry? Do you need to release that somehow? Are you sad? Do you need to cry? Don't belittle or berate yourself for what you feel. Be with that feeling. Appreciate the range of emotions and what they do to you. Appreciate the intricate defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms you have cleverly mastered to get yourself through that shame. And just be empowered by the knowledge. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you have questions, please feel free to ask me anything you like about shame, and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction. And take care, and we'll talk more about this soon. Bye.